Lesson 3. Why calendars are your BFF. Before I had my clothing business Punch brand, I had worked for many fashion companies from small mom and pop shops to large well-known corporations. I found that those companies that follow a calendar, whether it's a product development calendar or sales calendar, are better able to stay on top of timelines and meet their deliveries. Those companies that didn't use calendars had problems getting their products delivered on time to stores and clients. When you know your deadlines, there's no confusion what you should be working on. It creates a more harmonious, less stressful work environment of not always being behind the 8 ball and scrambling. You give yourself and your team enough room, including a buffer, in case things go wrong. It gives everyone some breathing room to get stuff done, sets a good work pace and not have to rush, thus reducing the chance of making mistakes, which can be costly and time-consuming. The best calendar systems I used was when I worked at Reebok as a product manager. I managed the NFL and CFL, which is the Canadian Football League, licensed product lines, working closely with the team's owners and equipment managers to outfit the players every season. Time was spent upfront to properly plan and create the calendar before any action was taken. When we were able to operate on a very lean and mean team, running the entire licensed product division with only 3 people. We never missed a deadline that was within our control. Sometimes outside factors happen like mistake in production, but with proper planning and added buffer, that minimizes the effect the mistake has on the overall outcome. Now I will share the exact planning system I used when I ran my clothing company, Punch brand, for 10 years that was adapted from my days working as a product manager for Reebok. I'm going to share it with you. Here's the tools I use to run my company. Mini calendar with 12 months on one sheet, product development timeline, line planning spreadsheet, production tracking grid, and product buying calendar. Step 1. Print off a mini calendar with 12 months on one sheet. You can just do a Google search for one-page calendar. The only way a product or business plan will happen on time and achieve the objectives set is with a timeline and discipline. This is a little trick we used at Reebok because we had to keep track of a lot of important deadlines, such as salesman sample deadlines, production deadlines, and customer delivery deadlines. Having a copy of the entire year calendar in front of you helps immensely. However, whenever I did my planning, because there was a lot of reverse calendar planning. That means starting with the target launch date, then working backwards to figure out your key milestones. It helps to have the entire year's calendar in front of me at a glance. Have this calendar in a place that's always visible to you. Step 2, product development timeline. The very first thing I do when I plan my line is I start with a product development timeline. Step 1, for each project, plug in the key dates. Highlight important deadlines such as final designs due, samples required, order deadline, production due date, and shipment due date. Step 2, work backwards and add in the lead times. Overseas production usually requires 3 to 4 week lead time plus shipping of 2 weeks lead time. Step 3, always add a buffer for delays and setbacks. That would probably be good buffers like 1 to 2 weeks. And then step 4 is establish your other important dates. Step 5, mark all dates down on your calendar and have it in a visible place in front of you at all times. Step 6, plug in the dates into your calendar app like iCal, Outlook Calendar, or Google Calendar and set automatic reminders. So you can download your copy of the product development timeline for your reference in the link below this lesson. Step 3, line planning spreadsheet. This is a sample template of a line planning spreadsheet. A line plan is a tool used to plan out the size and the number of pieces in your line. Companies use this every season as a starting point to figure out what they plan to offer for the collection. Usually it's based on past sales history, but if you're starting out, you can use this to figure out what you plan to offer and how many samples you will need. Not all the styles will end up making it in the final line depending on the orders you get from customers. So here's how to use a line planning spreadsheet. You can see where the numbers here indicate where you should enter what you should enter in each field. So, for example, the first column would be your style reference number, which is a working style number that you use. Number 2 is a graphic code. This is your print reference code, if applicable. If you, say, have a logo or some kind of print that goes onto your garment, so that's where you would put that code. 3 is your style number, and that's your final style number once it's decided. So maybe when you're just starting the line plan, you can leave this column blank for now until you know what your final style number is. 4 is your description, which is a product description. 5 is your fabric content. 6 is a factory name. 7 is sales samples required, the due date that's required for sales samples. 8 is size range offered. 9 is anticipated units to purchase. 10 is your quantity sold, which is units sold from last year. It's a reference, so you can make your better buying decisions. 11 is your body color, which is your main body color. And 12 is your color code. 13 is your target FOB for the cost of your goods. 14 is your target list price, which is the anticipated wholesale price. And last column is comments for final adoption. This means any changes or updates that need to be made would go into this column. So step 4 is the production planning and purchase order. Once you have your orders collected and have determined what you need to produce, you issue a purchase order to your vendor or factory. This is a sample purchase order. The essential fields would be your company name and address, PO number, date, name, and address of the factory, ship date, your payment terms, order quantity, style numbers, and description, color, size, unit price, and total amount. Next, you will plug everything into your production tracking grid. I know it's a little small to see here, but I've included a downloadable version for you to use. I have 2 versions. One is for domestic production, that means when the product is made locally, and one is for import production when the product is made overseas. The key areas you have are 1, vendor or factory name. Then you have the country of origin. Then the description of the product. The date for the product is ready to ship. Then the size range that's offered. ETX, when the goods leave the factory. And if you have an import, your product is being made overseas, then you would have a column for ETD, estimated time of delivery, when the goods are delivered to the freight forwarder. ETA is when the goods arrive at the port, so allow 1 week to clear customs and deliver to your warehouse. The original ETX is, in case your original ETX date changes, then you know how far behind your shipment is. And then ship status is if the goods are shipped, so you can enter, done when the product has been shipped. Your list price is your wholesale price, and FOB is your cost you pay the factory. And if it's an import, then you are responsible to pay for duties, freight, and brokerage charges. If that is the agreement, unless otherwise, if your supplier agrees to cover all those, then yeah, you would enter your costs there. So step 5 is the buying calendar. One final tool I use that's handy is the product buying calendar. This tells you the production lead times for new and existing products. This is just a guideline I created, but I recommend you work with your factory to create this calendar. Ask them, what is the lead time for repeat orders and for new orders? New orders will take longer as they need to allow time for grading the sizes, marker making, ordering raw materials, etc. Factories need to book production time for you. They can't just slot in orders as it comes in. They have to keep the workflow going to be efficient and productive. Give your factory a heads up as soon as you know you are about to place an order. Make sure to confirm the lead times before you place the order in case there's any changes. They may be busier at different times depending on the season. If you're working with a factory in China, they usually close for 4 weeks during the Chinese New Year holidays in February, so make sure your timeline reflects that and allows time for the delay. This grid tells you when you need to place your order and what is the anticipated delivery date. For example, if I have a repeat order for hats, if I place the order with the factory by May 15th, the order will be ready by September. If you are working with an overseas factory, please remember to factor the shipping lead time if it's an overseas order and add a buffer of 2 weeks for any delays.